So it's funny on the podcast or the webcast we talked. What was it? Maybe 2, 3 weeks ago about Fallout Boy.
Yeah, because
Well,
they were the
there's me and Pete from Fallout Boy in Arizona.
Nice. Yeah, I saw you with Machete.
Yeah, Machete.
They are named after the Bart Simpson character, right? Fall Out Boy.
Oh, really?
I think so.
I didn't know that.
I think that's a Simpsons thing.
And then I met.
He looks like Homer.
Radioactive guy and Fall Out Boy. I think so.
For you Curb fans, Curb Your Enthusiasm fans,
Who's that?
that's JB Smoove
Oh man,
from Curb.
nice.
Apparently he's got a. I guess after that photo was taken, he got into a big rift with. Who did he get in a rift with? Jimmy Kimmel.
Oh.
Because Jimmy apparently took a bit from him or something. He's pissed off.
Oh boy.
I'll keep this PG, but I saw my friend Jocelyn James out there. She's the lovely person who broke up Tiger Woods' marriage.
Oh.
One of many.
One of many.
was she the Pancake House girl or the masseuse or the?
She was actually promoting. She was promoting that she was dancing that night at Cheetahs.
No, I'm just saying there were at least a dozen distractions that ended Tiger Woods' marriage.
Yeah.
Which if you see who he was married to, just shows the lack of IQ and the bankruptcy of his mind.
Yes.
But anyway.
There's closest I could get to him, Frank Caliendo, for those who like Frank.
Okay.
Was he doing John Madden at that point or Al Pacino?
Probably. He was doing one of the two. Here's the celebrity football game, and there is Snoop. That's the closest I could get to Snoop without getting a bodyguard's fist in the face.
And the haze in the background is marijuana smoke. There you
go. No.
Okay.
Actually, it was pretty good. There's the guys I worked with. Those are the Wounded Warriors.
Nice.
Cool.
Really good guys. And you know what? I think one of the coolest things, for me, I saw that movie American Sniper. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet or not.
Yeah.
But one of the guys in the movie who they talk about died in the movie. I met his mom there, and she was really nice, and she's in charge of the Chris Kyle Memorial. Was it Chris? It was Chris Kyle, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So and she talked to me about how he was like a son to her, and she got a little emotional, and it was
understandable.
Yeah.
But I saw the movie and it was excellent. I honestly don't know what all the controversy about it is. It seems to be more of a political football than anything. It's a really good movie.
There's me and Machete. And the funny thing, guys, is with Machete, he's 5'5". He's tiny.
Wow.
You expect this guy to be huge, from all the...
He would be a spear, though, right? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. From like all the movies that he's done, he was in Breaking Bad, he was in Sons of Anarchy, 2 recent TV shows. He was in lots of movies, Machete 2.
He was in Heat with Al Pacino and De Niro and Val Kilmer.
Yeah. He played a bad guy at the beginning.
He was in From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah. This is a guy that you expect to be, kind of like maybe 5'11", 6 feet tall, and he is tiny. I was overlooking this guy. I'm like, oh my God, this guy doesn't look as scary in real life.
Most of these actors are I know that like Tom Cruise is only 5'5" or 5'6". He's not very big.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Some of them are very big.
Yeah,
that's Radio Row. That's what Radio Row looked like for those who.
Okay, yeah, I got it. Nice.
Okay. Huge, and they have the fan experience there, and it's pretty cool. They had a pretty good setup, but it's madness there for parking. Like you can't find parking anywhere.
Ah, man.
So my job there, guys, was to when these guys showed up, I was to go and pick them up at first find them parking, and then I had to walk them over to the credential office. And then I had to walk them over from the credential office to someone knocking at my door.
Someone ringing the bell.
Uh,
Do me a favor. Open the door and let him in.
Yep. Heck, why don't you mute Josh while
Yep. Mm-hmm.
just in case somebody breaks down the door and then
Yeah.
we don't have to hear all the yelling and screaming as Josh is assaulted.
Well, Kevin.
What was that?
Tied up temporarily, but should be joining us hopefully.
Okay. Well, we
Dude.
can. I guess we
I
can.
put the did I forget to put the chat room in there again? Did you put it in? Sorry, I forgot.
I don't know. I'll double check. Hold
I
on.
forgot to put it in there. I'll put it in. Put that in real fast.
I can do it. No problem.
My bad. Wow.
Yep. Yeah. Hold on, and I'll do it.
You got it? You can do it?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I apologize, guys, for yesterday not having a show. I was just sick as a dog. It just one of these things that just hit me all of a sudden the night before. And everybody in our house has it. My wife had it middle of the day yesterday. I came home from work, and she's home today. It's just kind of been pretty rotten, but that's okay. We're all good now, and we're all happy now. You're muted, Josh. So yeah, everything okay there, Josh?
yeah, it was someone trying to find my my landlord. So.
Gotcha. Okay, so we are. He's fixing the chat room as we speak.
It's fixed.
Thank you. Perfect. All right, so the chat room's live now, and we should be good to go.
There's another gem I met. Really nice guy. Do you know who that is, Zach?
Yes, but I can't think of who it is. It's so familiar.
Montel Williams.
Montel Williams. There you go. Yes.
Really good dude.
He isn't dead yet.
No, actually, no. He looked
King
pretty
of what do they call them? Infomercials now, isn't he? Like.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of infomercials.
He's got MS, but he's in pretty good spirits.
Not to be insensitive, but about 7 or 8 years ago, his talk show was basically canceled because they said he was close to death, and it's been 7 or 8 years, and he's still alive. So it's surprising. I mean, I'm glad for him, but
Well, he's doing well because he just came from skiing. He was skiing in Colorado and came over to Phoenix.
All right.
okay.
So I guess he's doing well.
There we go. Let's get going.
All right, let's get going here.
Who's that?
Looks like my brother. That's Josh Gad. He's in the new movie The Ringer with Kevin Hart. Also, his claim to fame for kids is his voice is Olaf in Frozen.
Nice.
I knew there was a reason I didn't like him.
Nice.
All right, let's get started here. Let's go.
Frozen, as I've said before, definitely the worst animated Disney film of all time. But anyway, let's continue.
What, Frozen is?
Yeah.
Well,
There's
the
no
second one
story.
comes out soon, so.
There's no plot. It's anyway. We've been down this road. I'll start the show. Ready? Here we go. All right. The date is
The 5th of February.
yes. This is
And it's not
Thursday, February 5th. Here we go. Ready? Oh, here's Kevin. Just as we're about to hey, Kev.
Hey,
I was just about to say hello, Hockey World, and you're bam. There you are. Perfect. Perfect timing.
I'm here to greet the hockey world. So
Yeah.
if anything comes down with Evander Kane, though, I'm gonna have to head out. So
Are we anticipating something big soon? We are live. So
right. Well, I mean, it just just wait. Will he be suspended? What'll happen?
Right. I got you. Okay, yeah, you can head out at any point. So
Just lower your screen a little bit, Kev.
All right. Thanks.
I was going to wear a sweatsuit for today's show, but I didn't.
Yeah,
Should have.
I thought about it as well.
Yeah, we should all wear sweatsuits sometime. Josh, you're already wearing the Under Armour stuff as usual, so you can wear it.
Of course, I got some nice stuff in Phoenix, too.
You can definitely make that happen. All right, here we go. We'll start the show. Ready? Thursday, February 5th. February 5th.
Yeah.
So, Mike, Kevin, Josh. Hey, Hockey World, how you doing? It's Thursday, February 5th, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Kevin Allen of USA Today Sports.
Josh Rimmer.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. Sorry for no show yesterday. You would not have wanted to see me yesterday at 1 o'clock. Put it that way. It was just an ugly day around here. So, but everybody's fine now, except for my wife has some residual effects. But when we get a stomach virus in this house, it goes through everybody, and we're really good at it. So anyway, that's all we got to say about that. We'll keep it there for now. But yeah, we're back. We had a night without hockey, a big game tonight. Like I think one of the games of the year tonight coming up to talk about. And I guess we need to start with Evander Kane. And I didn't, wear my sweatsuit today because there is an NHLPA violation for that. Kevin, what's going on? What's the latest?
Well, I mean, we don't really know. All we know for sure is that he was suspended, and Gary Lawless, a fine reporter, has said that he was in violation of the team's dress code. But generally in those situations, that's the sort of last straw type situation. But obviously he had, hadn't been performing at a high level. Was certainly in Coach Paul Maurice's doghouse, and this is starting to look like one of those situations where the coach is trying to draw a line in the sand here, and we're going to have to see where it goes. I mean, he wasn't there today, for anybody to talk to, so we're not really sure what's going to happen. But we all know that there have been Evander Kane trade rumors now going on for the better part of a year. They had died down for a while. But I think obviously this brings up the idea of would the team and Evander Kane be better off if they move him? But my position on this is always that you're better off trying to trade a player of his ability, in the postseason or in the summer, not the regular season, because it would be hard to get good value. I think trading him now.
Yeah, it would be hard, and there are so many different opinions on this as to. What I do agree with, starting from the first part, I do agree that this is probably more symptomatic of everything else that's going on, and more of like, okay, we're gonna take a stance. Or somebody sent me the CBA that says that this is a CBA issue more than it is Exhibit 14 of form of standard club rules says that players are required to wear jackets, ties, and dress pants to all club games, and while traveling to and from such games, unless otherwise specified by the head coach or general manager. That's a little bit, I don't know. I've seen that. We've all seen players not doing that. That's what I'll throw.
I'm gonna. I haven't seen too many.
List of agents who specialized in income.
I'm muting. Sorry, let me mute Josh there for a second. Sorry, we got just Josh. Go ahead, Kev. That was
okay. I think for the most part, players come pretty well dressed to the game. I haven't noted too many players that have resisted that. But your point is well taken. I think I've seen guys who looked disheveled wearing a suit that certainly probably would have been in violation of the spirit of that. So I'm sure it goes sort of beyond that. And I think it's a good rule. I mean, you're professional athletes, and part of any business environment is adhering to the business decorum. I mean, when you're working for any company, they expect you to put a good face on for the public, and so I don't have any problem with the rule, and I don't think this is about the rule. I think this is about the relationship between.
Right. And here's another example of why signing players to a long-term contract coming out of their entry-level deal is a roll of the dice. I mean, we've seen that in the situation with Edmonton. Not to say that Taylor Hall or Jordan Eberle or Nugent Hopkins aren't good players, but there is a risk in signing those players to big money and long term coming out of the entry level deal, because you're not sure what they are. And in this case, Evander Kane scores 30 goals, and they sign him to that big deal. And his numbers, if you look at his numbers, are not that impressive over the last few years. And this year, I know that he's been relegated to more of a second, third line role, and there's rumors out there about him having a hand problem, and that may be affecting his offensive output. But this is a guy he's the second highest paid player on this team, at least forward wise, behind Blake Wheeler. They expect him to score 25 to 30 goals at least. They're not getting that, and they're also not getting him conforming to what the club wants in terms of the rules. So I think they were, I bet you Paul Maurice, jumped at the opportunity to sort of crack him down and say, okay, you have to, stay within the rules of the club. And I mean, I just don't see this ending well for these two sides. I mean, I'm surprised he's stayed there this long. I thought he was going to get moved last summer. And, if he survives past March the 2nd, I don't think he'll be a Winnipeg Jet next year.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, there's the other things at hand. There are obviously the stuff we've seen on Twitter and Instagram and all that. That's personally, Winnipeg's a small town, and there's a lot of. I talked to our writer out there, Pete Tessier, who lives in Winnipeg, and he wrote a pretty good story about it called Suitgate. And he just says in it, is this, like you said, Kevin, this is the last straw, basically. It's just one of these things. It's a tipping point moment. It's everybody out there, and it's a town that, the Winnipeg fan. This is not the best scenario for Evander Kane to be in this town. It's just that's what everybody keeps saying. And yet, at the same time, he's also, as Peter says in this article, this is a lot of hoopla over a third line winger, because that's what he's become.
Well, yeah. I mean, the one issue here, which is a good thing for the Winnipeg Jets, is like this guy still has tremendous potential, but the Jets have played very well this season, and they don't need him right now in terms of his performance level. They can move along without him now. Sometimes in these situations it's a player who's pretty vital, but they've become the team they have without Evander Kane being a star. Their top line, as we talked about the other day, in terms of its ability to play 5-on-5, is one of the best 5-on-5 lines. We're talking about Ladd and Little and Wheeler. So even though they expect him to score goals, they're not in a situation where they absolutely need him. So that's why I think if they felt like they needed to trade him, they could. But I just don't think you could get fair value now. Where in the off season there'll be a lot more teams that would be able to manipulate their cap in order to take him.
The question is, though, and I agree with what you're saying, Kevin. Just like the situation with the Leafs with some of their players, they'll get more value for Phaneuf or Kessel if they trade them in the summer rather than trying to force a deal now. But the thing is that Evander Kane seems to be a guy who wants to be playing in a big pond, playing in LA or New York or Toronto. But all this stuff on Instagram, all this stuff on social media, all this flashing the money and all the the stuff that he's been doing, big market teams and other teams are probably going to have a little bit of a concern of the character of this player if he's doing this stuff. I mean, what's going to happen if he's in a Toronto or in a New York with the clubs, with the nightlife and everything else? And are they going to be able to keep him in control and make sure that he concentrates on his career? And I'm sorry, that is a big concern, and I think that's something that might drive down his value a little bit.
A little, but not much. I mean, and Tessier has a great line thing in his article as well. Definitely recommend going to it on HockeyBuzz. He says, Kane is the second least amount of. He says, how many third line wingers in the NHL score 30 goals? How many score 20? Kane is the second least amount of minutes of 5 versus 4 or power play in 5 versus 4 or power play time, 5 versus 5 or power play time. Yet his points 60 is third at 4.81, only behind Little and Ladd, 2 first-line players. So he's saying here, in all situations, Kane is 5th in points, 60th, in all moments. So, this is a versus for him. I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure that. This is Corsi stuff, but what he's basically saying here is that this is...
he's productive for the number of minutes he actually plays.
Exactly. And, and Kane has been very good shorthanded, apparently, as well, for points-wise. And so he is definitely, getting production out of his little bits of time play, which I think goes to your point, Kevin, which is that I think the people will take a chance on him despite his attitude.
Well, yeah, and we've all seen instances. I mean, the most recent was Tyler Seguin. Different circumstances, but it looked like Boston was concerned about his off-ice habits, and they wanted to move him out. I mean, clearly they did, because you don't move a prospect of his ability unless you have concerns about him. So they moved him out, and there's been no problems in Dallas. In fact, he's blossomed into the player that everyone had hoped or expected he would be. Under with Lindy Ruff being his coach and Jim Nillis as general manager, and being away from Boston. And I think the hope would be, if you acquire Kane, that a similar thing would happen, that he would grow up a little, as we all do. at that age, and that different environment would, and the feeling that he is on probation. He's not really, but I'm sure that's how it feels for a player who's felt like he's been traded because out of concern for his off ice, habits. And so, I think there are certainly going to be teams out there that are going to want to take Evander Kane. But I think it's fair what Mike said about, would they get the same full value as if he didn't have these? Who knows? I think that's possible that, he probably may not fetch quite as much, but I think they'll do okay.
Yeah, I think they'll do okay, but I mean those concerns and even injury concerns as well. He missed 20 games last year. He missed 16 games this year with a couple different injuries. Now that can be just happenstance. It can be just bad luck. But as we know from guys like Joffrey Lupul, I mean they seem to miss a quarter of the season every year for some injury. Is always something different. But they always seem to miss time. And being the type of rough and tumble player that Kane is, he's a power forward. He's going to be in physical contact with other players a lot more than other players. So that has to be a concern going forward as well. But I mean, if they trade him in the summer, they will get good value for him. And his $5.25 million for 3 years for a player that's 23 years old, I think they'll find some takers.
Yeah.
They'll find takers. He's apparently also not at practice today.
Right. Yeah, he was not at practice. Yeah.
So you add all this together, yeah, it's there could be a number of things as well. But anyway, that's my goodness, we'll see what happens here. So John Scott, one of your favorite players, Mike, I know you're a big John Scott fan, now has more goals than Cody Hodgson. Than Cody Hodgson. Somebody had sent me this article, which is pretty funny. And yeah, it's pretty crazy. Cody Hodgson is just really fallen off the map.
Well, it's funny that Cody Hodgson is occupying the spot that John Scott did last year, which was part-time fourth-line winger for the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah.
Cody Hodgson was drafted as a center. He is a center. He got, I think it was a 5-year contract extension with the Sabres or 5 or 6 year extension at $4.25 million, and he's fallen so far off the radar right now that I think his contract is untradeable. And knowing the amount of capital,
this was like the highlight of the trade deadline a few years ago, right? The Hodgson for Cashin trade. This was like the big deal, and both these players are just.
Yeah, this is a rare case when a trade helped neither team.
Yes, it has helped no one, and none of the players have gotten anything out of it.
The story would be funnier if Hodgson had more fights than Scott, but that's not.
Yeah, it's not the case. But I mean, gosh, holy cow!
Yeah, again, Hodgson didn't forget how to play hockey.
Right.
I mean, there's obviously something going on there. This is a bad season that's just gotten worse, and I'm sure the more he's been demoted, his morale is probably and confidence are at an all-time low. And if he got into different circumstances, he's going to be the player. But is he ever going to be the player that the Sabres hoped he would be when they made that trade? Who knows? But I think this is a case where he needs to get out of Buffalo probably and get a change of venue.
And to a lesser extent, they're completely two different scenarios because Hodgson is in I think he's younger than 25 years old. But in a situation where, like Mike Richards, I mean, his contract might hurt him. I mean, $4.25 million is a typical salary for a top six forward, second line more than first line. He's not a top six forward, so I mean, the only way I can see him going someplace else or getting a job with another NHL team is if the Sabres trade him and eat $2 million or half of his salary, or they buy him out and some team takes a chance on him at $1 million or $1.5 million. I mean, that might give him a rebirth of a career, but right now the salary is going to kill his opportunities with some teams.
All right, and this brings me to a little discussion point for today. We bring up Mike Richards as well, Mike. And Mike Richards had a goal and 2 assists last night, for the Monarchs. Playing well down there apparently, getting, and being a good soldier, talking a good game. And we've seen other players in the past who get kind of buried in the minors for periods of time. Wade Redden and was one to remember. Other players who just can't be moved because of their contracts for whatever reason. If Kevin, tell me why we can't have something in the CBA that fixes this. Like, why there isn't, if a player and a team both want out of this, you know what I mean? Why does this go like this?
Well, I think the theory behind it is that you want there to be pain,
Right.
For GMs who don't manage their cap effectively or to make poor decisions. I'm talking from the league perspective. I mean, the idea of a cap is, you have to protect GMs from themselves. So you have this situation where they're only going to the Kings are only getting $900,000 cap relief out of this by sending him down. But the problem with that is obviously is that it punishes a guy, because obviously there are teams that would love to have Mike Richards playing for them if it could be worked out. And there is a solution. I mean, the Kings can eat some of the money, but there's not good trade options out there right now for them. Because people are concerned.
Yeah, and they should be, and I get that. But at the same time, it feels like if both sides are willing to get it, like I think of a no-trade clause. A no-trade clause exists, but then again, a no-trade clause can be broken, right? You can sit there and a player can be asked to waive his no-trade clause, and that happens. Why can't we be asked to waive a contract? Why can't you say, okay, contract. Now, if that was the case, I know the first thing, and as I'm saying it coming out of my mouth, I could hear the critics in my ears saying, then players will be forced to waive contracts. But I don't think that that's the case. It's not like waiving the no-trade clause. I don't think that would happen. Mike?
Yeah, I don't think Mike Richards is going to waive that contract either.
Right.
Right.
I mean, there are avenues of escape here. They're called cap retention and buyouts.
There's avenues of escape for the team. There's not for the player. There's nothing that he can do. Like and I know that we're really trying to feel sorry for Mike Richards. He's making millions of dollars playing hockey. I know
that nobody. I mean, what the argument's going to be that these guys don't want out of these contracts.
Right.
He's getting paid, 5.8, is it?
5.75. Yeah,
to play in the minor leagues. He doesn't want out of that contract.
Yeah, it switches the bad guy from being the team to the player.
I've talked to agents who said that their players would want out of big contracts to get a chance to play back in the NHL. I go back to Redden and you go back to what was the guy on San Jose that was in this situation? Same situation. Several years back. We just mentioned it the other day, Mike, and I was
Kyle McLaren,
right? That these are players who are but aren't because of this situation. It doesn't happen often, and Wade Redden apparently loved his time in the AHL, and he loved the city, and he loved playing there, and it was okay. But there should at least be the option, because I think of players who've made enough money.
Here's the thing, though, that it's not like Richards is going to be playing in the AHL for a long period of time. This is going to get worked out at some point. It may not be this season. But,
I don't know, though. Why would it? I mean, is it going to get better? It's not going to get better.
Well, but sooner or later, it would make more sense for the Kings to eat some of the salary,
right?
And trade them, and if it's half the ability, half the salary, I think teams would take them to use them as a third or fourth liner.
Yeah, right. They're going to gain enough cap room if they pay 25 to 50% of the salary in a trade to be able to lock up Toffoli and Pearson on their bridge deals. So I mean, they'll get some cap relief. They just won't get anything of value back, or right. They can't take anything back. But what I'm surprised at, and I don't think it's possible in the NHL under the new CBA. What I'm surprised hasn't come about in the NHL are things like the contract situations that in Major League Baseball with guys like Sabathia and A-Rod, where after 3 or 4 years there's a window that they can either mutually walk away, or there's a window where they can just say I'm a free agent, and that would shorten up these deals to the point where the team or the player has an escape clause in a way. The thing is, though, what the next battle on the new CBA, which we don't want to even think about, but 7 or 8 years down the line when the new CBA comes up, it's going to be shortening up these deals from 8 and 7 years to 6 and 5 years.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Now here's kind of big news for people in Philadelphia, and again showing that Florida is just doing things the right way. Did you guys see this yet? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Peter Luco, former Flyers president, is to be named executive chairman of the Florida Panthers tomorrow. Apparently, Peter Luco was, not a lot of people know him in Philadelphia unless you dealt, with the Flyers on that kind of level. But I dealt with him a lot, and the media dealt with him a lot. And he's one of the good guys in the sport. And really, when he was removed out of his position, a lot of people worried that the Flyers were losing a part of their soul. That's how intensely people liked this guy. He'd been around. He was the guy who was everybody expected to be like the heir apparent to Ed Snyder. But Ed Snyder, as someone off the record said, is going to be there alone. And I think Peter Luco wanted to move forward, and it was not going to happen for a while. And so he's been out. Now his name has been tied often to the Seattle franchise. So just draw your own lines if you want to there. But I'm just saying that's an interesting thing that I thought about when I first saw this right away, because I've heard often Peter's name mentioned with the Seattle franchise. I don't think that's happening. I don't think Florida's moving to Seattle, but I'm just going to throw out there that is, to me, one of the more intriguing things. I think Peter Luco is. Josh, you have something that's going on?
No, I just wanted to bring this up. We were just talking about Kane, and we talked about him missing a practice this morning. John Shannon of Sportsnet just said that Kane was meeting with team doctors, told by Jets source, still many moving parts, nothing imminent.
Yeah.
They'll probably shut it down.
I muted you, Kevin, just so you know.
There was some speculation, and I don't know if this was just a theory or, Kane has been playing with a damaged finger or something with his hand for most of the season, and it's been in the realm of possibility that he would have surgery on this. If he, not to say that right now, it doesn't look like things are going great with Kane right now, but if he opted to say, let me just have surgery on this, then he basically deprives the Jets of an effective player down the stretch. I don't know if the club would be very happy with that, but maybe they'd be happy with it.
They can't do anything about that. If the doctor says he needs surgery, then they're stuck.
Right. And it could end up being a good cooling off period, because
I agree.
The other issue here is you don't want it to fester on a team that has actually exceeded expectations this season. As I said before, they were going pretty well, and Kane hasn't been all that productive in the last. I think hasn't he gone 7 games without?
It's something like that.
He looked very, very off in Philadelphia. I saw Winnipeg and Philadelphia last week, and he was very unnoticeable, for Evander Kane. Like, you normally would when you watch Winnipeg play live, when Evander Kane's in the ice. He was very unnoticeable. And part of that had to be his ice time. I'm sure it wasn't out there as much, but part of it was even when he was out there, wasn't making plays. He wasn't getting involved very much. He was very perimeter, and that's also not his game. But just getting back to Peter Luco for a second, I just want to say that, this group in Florida, Dale Talon, Gerard Gallant, Peter Luco, they're doing everything right in terms of my mind, in terms of bringing in great hockey people. They are bringing in the really creme de la creme hockey people into the Florida Panthers. Guys with experience at winning teams, guys with experience at original teams, often people call the Flyers one of the original 7 or whatever, because they've had such an impact in the time they've been here. But there's no question that tomorrow when they announce this. The Panthers get better. The Panthers' whole situation gets better, and hats off to them for recognizing this.
Yeah, and the value of a good president is significant, especially for a team that is still trying to make its way, down in South Florida. They were criticized heavily because of the optics of seeing a near empty arena, but most of the people in this business would say, getting rid of papering your house is the start of a good business plan, because everybody in that arena has paid fully, and what ends up happening is when it seems like a good idea to give away your tickets, because you get some parking and concessions and so forth, and your house is filled up. But the problem with that is that when you have a guy who's paying full freight for his ticket sitting next to a guy who got a free ticket, pretty soon the value that you're trying to sell just diminishes. So they took that first step and they've taken a beating over that, and now they're going to bring in a guy like Luco, who I'm sure, will have ideas on, how to transform this into a product that people want to see. And I'm not talking about what happens on the ice, because that'll be Dale Talon's situation, but I'm talking about, just marketing plans and advertising and getting in the community, getting businesses involved, and making players active in the community, connecting with fans. So there's a lot that a president does. A good president is very, very valuable.
Yeah, it's extremely. And this guy's, and also they did deal with the media, and they deal with people like that. And you also really see a lot with Luco. His history before the Flyers was running arenas like the LA Forum for Spectacor. Like the Spectacor ran the LA Forum. The arena up in Toronto, or that they play that preseason game in all the time in London, right? That's another one of the Spectacor arenas. And Peter's first job was that he was running arenas. And he ran them incredibly well. So that also plays into this whole thing of being able to market this stuff together. Pretty intense, That's a really good thing for them to be able to do. All right, so let's see for a second here. I had this other, just lost it for a second. I don't want to really get into this Slava Voinov stuff.
Yeah,
because it's all
not exactly hockey talk. It's
not hockey talk, and it is not facts. We don't have any.
The only thing you can really relate to that. Yeah, the only thing you can really relate to that, Ak, is the fact that,
I'm sorry, this is my fault. I was turning up something there. That was mine bad. Sorry.
It doesn't sound like the situation is going to be solved anytime soon, which lends the possibility of the Kings going out and trading for a defenseman before the deadline. And I was going to ask Kevin, and when Kevin comes back, we were talking a couple shows ago about the fact that there's no playoff race in the Eastern Conference. I think Florida is 7 points behind the last wild card spot. It's getting to that point now in the West. If you look at it, that one team is within 4 points, and then there's a group of, I think, 3 teams that are 5 points away. You're a couple wins away from the teams in the wild card almost being uncatchable.
Yeah, you are, and you're starting to see. If you look at the long trends, though, there are some teams in that lower group in both conferences that are starting to play a lot better. Now, whether or not that's well enough to get them up there, like we saw Columbus was playing better. You were muted, Josh, because I thought something was going wrong there, and it was my side. I apologize for that one. Philadelphia's playing better. They've got 4 wins in a row, and a good schedule. Tonight the Flyers play the Islanders. That's a tough one, but that's also a team that even recently the Flyers have been able to beat the Islanders.
Right.
So,
but those teams, L.A., Dallas, Colorado, they're all 5 points out. They're within striking distance, but their general managers may have to consider the fact that if they're going to get within realistic position to overtake a Calgary or a Winnipeg or a Vancouver, that they may have to make their moves now to start the process of chasing those teams down, and that's a difficult position to be in, because they probably have to give up a little more than they normally would for a player or two to help them on their way. But it's either that or you don't make the playoffs.
Well, to me, the most interesting team in the West is Calgary, honestly, because they're not supposed to be there, and they're not supposed to be this good, and now suddenly they have not dropped. Like we saw Florida's dropped off to a degree. Calgary's 8-2 in their last 10. Calgary is in second place now in their division. It's granted. This is like incredibly crazy stuff when you think about it. We're in, we're approaching now, the middle of February, and they're second in their division. And you're still doing it with mirrors to a degree. They're still doing it in ways that at least Johnny Gaudreau's been great, and Jerry Danner's been great, but they're still not blowing the doors off, but they're winning games.
No, they're winning on effort, on energy. They're getting good goaltending out of Hiller and every other goaltender that they've played. The thing is that I'm sure the fan base in Calgary is excited, and the thing is that Calgary has the most cap space of any team in the NHL this year.
Yeah.
So it would do wonders for a Winnipeg or for a Calgary to make the playoffs. and both
Yeah.
those teams have cap room before the deadline. It's now a question of whether their management teams want to sort of jump forward and accelerate the process and add a player or add two players before the deadline to increase their chances, or whether they just don't want to mess with the chemistry and just leave things as is. I mean, with Calgary, they may just say, we're getting the benefit of a great performance. All these kids are coming up together. Monahan's playing great. Brody's playing great. And let's just go. Whereas I think Winnipeg, might be more open to making that ad, because I think the fan base in Winnipeg would go bonkers if that team made the postseason.
Yeah, or even made a trade.
True.
I mean, that team said, they have not made trades. One of the names that's been coming up with Calgary and Winnipeg has been Santarelli, who is seems to be the name du jour for some reason in the trade rumor mill today. Everywhere you looked, you saw Mike Santarelli's name mentioned. A lot of people linking him back to the Canucks, as I've been doing for a couple weeks now. The Blues, the Flames, even the Penguins. I'm still hearing the Penguins. I said, that even though the Penguins made that move, the Penguins are still involved. But now the Predators are involved too, and this kind of takes it to another place, because the Preds also have a lot of cap space, also have the ability to do some pretty creative things, and have a ton of prospects. So the Preds are they're not short on prospects, and we know that not only were the Leafs scouting the Preds recently, but they were, I believe, even heading up to scout their AHL team, Greg. So this is a situation where Santarelli could add a lot to them. And all the while, I do believe the Leafs are trying to sign him, but I don't think that, from everything I've heard, that's not going to happen. That Santarelli's number is going to be too high. So
It's I think it's similar to the situation with Franzen right now, Ackwood, where the Leafs made Franzen an offer, but they made him an offer that clearly wouldn't be good enough to get him signed. They can say that they negotiated, but they really didn't. And I don't, the Leafs like Santarelli. In fact, Peter Horachek called him one of their better players after his performance in Nashville. He played great. He's played pretty good all season. He's not the problem. The problem is they don't have another 4 or 5 guys who are playing with the effort of Mike Santarelli, and he's playing for a contract. So,
right.
I mean, that's the reason why. But he's an inexpensive contract. He's a good, effective, versatile forward who can play center and wing, can penalty kill. I mean, a team going into the playoffs would love to have a Santarelli. Now, the thing is, the Leafs want young assets under the age of, say, 22 or 23, and or draft picks, and whoever offers the most is going to get him. And right now, if you look at his numbers, he has the exact same numbers that he had in Vancouver last year before he had a season-ending injury. So he's a consistent player. Yeah, I can see them. I believe he was in Nashville before, earlier in his career.
I think so.
Yeah,
I was trying to remember that, because I think didn't he still? Yeah, well, I'll look that up. But the Preds have of course always extra defensemen, as Cody Franzen is an example. So the Predators always have their defensemen that they can move around. They can always use scoring in Nashville. That's a given. They can always use character players, and Peter Laviolette, in an ideal world, would want I always believe would want to have a top line and 3 third lines. He really is all about. There's not many coaches that roll 4 lines more than Peter Laviolette rolls 4 lines, and a lot of people say they do it, but he actually does it, and he'll do it in the playoffs too. So
the result of the game on Tuesday in Nashville was the perfect result for the Maple Leafs, in the sense that their best 4 players on the ice were Santarelli, Winnick, Franzen, and Joffrey Lupul. They all scored at least a point, and they still lost. So it was the perfect storm for the Maple Leafs. And the thing is, I get the feeling, that if the teams that are interested in Santarelli, if they strike out on him, that I've heard Winnipeg and I've heard Pittsburgh in terms of Winnick, because Winnick is a good special teams guy, a veteran guy, provides size, can play center of the wing. So some of the same teams that are interested in Santarelli are interested in Winnick as well. And from the reports, it seems that those players are going to be moved relatively soon, probably within a week or at least 2 weeks, but well before the March 2nd deadline.
Yeah,
So,
I get that impression. I get the impression that we're about a week away from trade starting. It really feels that. February 15th is when we'll probably start to see them. And there's usually a bunch of trades that happen 2 weeks before the deadline, and then there's usually a week of dead time. So I think we could see a lot then. I agree. And I think Calgary is fascinating because of their cap space, like you said. But at the same time, Brian Burke has not been one to ever, and even though he's not the general manager there, we still kind of refer to him when we talked about Calgary. Brian Burke has never been one to go after rental players. And Calgary really is in the perfect situation to go after rental players. So it'll be interesting to see. Maybe he's just never been in that spot before.
well, you know what Burke has always said. You always pay ridiculous, overpriced prices at the deadline. And that's why he's always shied away from the deadline. But in this instance, where I think there are a lot of sellers, not only Toronto, but a number of teams, half the Eastern Conference are sellers. They might be able to find themselves a bargain or two that won't cost them anything down the line, just free agents that teams are looking to trade and maybe get just a young prospect or a lower pick. I mean,
I would guess that they would go for tough defensemen. That's where I guess they would head. I guess they would. I think that Calgary would not want to screw with their upfront chemistry. Right. But if you're going on a long playoff run, Burke will bring in big defensemen who can help you in that situation. I think that's where they would head. But we'll find out for sure. What do you have news-wise, Josh, today? Anything exciting?
A few things, guys. On the injury front, once again, the Edmonton Oilers have placed Nikita Nikitin on injured reserve. Great contract, Oilers, in the offseason. Guy can't even stay healthy. Anyway. Phoenix. Head coach Dave Tippett said centers Martin Hanzal and Joe Vitale will both be sidelined at least another week because of upper body injuries. And found an interesting article written by the great Jim Matheson. I call him the great because he's one of my favorite writers, and he's a friend. But anyway, Jim Matheson discusses the Red Wings' pursuit of Tyler Myers and Jeff Petrie. Now, Jim says the Wings, obviously we know this, crave a righty on the back end with none in their stable. And he's saying that the Ducks, who are more of a cup threat than Detroit is, want to win now in the ultra-competitive West. So apparently there's a little bit of a bidding war, if you will, going on with the Ducks and the Red Wings for Tyler Myers. Now, Jim Matheson writes, the Wings won't give up for Myers. Center Dylan Larkin, obviously we kind of knew that, the best U.S. player at the World Junior. Yeah. And Slovak Thomas Tatar. So those are the untouchables.
Right. So now that means the Red Wings won't be getting Tyler Myers.
Yeah. Now the Red Wings would hesitate to move winger Anthony Mantha, but apparently this is who is in play, and this is who the Red Wings are offering, according to Jim Matheson. Defenseman Xavier Ouellet. I don't know if I said his last name right.
Yeah, that's Xavier.
Okay. Ryan Sproul, the blue liner, and a former teammate of Darnell Nurse in the Sioux. Swedish forward Alex Holmstrom, winger Thomas Yurko, winger Timu Polkinen, and Russian defender Alexei Marchenko. So apparently those are the guys that are available.
Right,
now,
which means that the Detroit Red Wings, for a right-hand shot, 6'8" defenseman who's under contract at an underpriced, I think it's $5.25 million for a number of more years, will not give up one of their top 3 or 4 prospects. Yeah. Kenny Holland, Tim Murray is not stupid.
Yeah, so I think that's where it's at now, though. I mean,
that's not you're right. That's where it's at now, and that may change. But Buffalo is going to expect probably 2 good prospects, one of them being an NHL roster player for Tyler Myers. Otherwise, they're not dealing. They're not in a position that they have to deal him. Yeah. If they get value for him, they will. I'm sure if Anaheim is in the mix for Tyler Myers, that they're the Sabres are going to be asking for Devontae Smith-Pelly, or for they could be asking for a guy like Gibson, the goaltender. I mean, right. That's the type of prospects that they would want back for Tyler Myers, and if they're not getting it, then they're not going to deal them, and then Detroit or Anaheim is going to be looking to trade for guys like Petrie and Mathot and Franzen and Mike Green.
We need more guts in the general manager pool right now, in my opinion. I'm not on Holland, but just in general. I'm just going to say, I mean, Holland's very gutsy, and eventually we'll get something done. But there's just there's so much hesitancy to not be screwed on these deals that that there's really people just have to realize you have to give something to get something, and that eventually does come to fruition. But it doesn't always. We see that more at the draft now than we do at the trade deadline. So these deals, anything that's close like this, you have to think to yourself, probably the draft, right? So, but that's the more likely scenario there, I would think. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I also want to point out he mentions about Jeff Petrie and that there's a few interested parties on him, including Detroit. Also interested are the Montreal Canadiens. And a funny, well, I mean, we've discussed this, I think, before on this show. Matheson saying, I've given up figuring what second-pairing NHL D-men should be making on the open market when teams stupidly throw money around, so I thought not to laugh when I chose. There's a spelling error. I chose not to laugh when I heard Cody Franzen, an average NHL blue liner, would be in the $5.5 million range on July 1st. He's a 35-point NHL D-man. I guess if Matt Niskanen can get 7 years at 5.75 in Washington last summer, anything is possible.
Yeah, Franzen versus Niskanen, Kevin. What are your thoughts on that one?
Niskanen's a much better player.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
He's a better skater. Yeah.
Well, and I think he's just a better two-way guy as well. I mean, Niskanen's a pretty good one-on-one defender.
Yeah.
He's a good transition guy. So yeah, I like Niskanen. But what's interesting is Niskanen picked the perfect time to have a really exceptional season.
He did. There's no question about that.
No doubt about that. So.
And Franzen is having a career year, or at least his best offensive year, just by happenstance on the year that he's going unrestricted. So, and based on I not to dispute Mr. Matheson, but the thing is that it's the bankruptcy of the unrestricted free agent pool that is generating these high prices, not the quality of the players. I mean, if Cody Franzen is a good NHL defenseman, he's not a great NHL defenseman. I think Matt Niskanen is in the same area. Maybe he's a little better. But the fact that there's nobody, I mean, Stahl signed. Right now, who are the top three defensive free agents? Probably Boychuk, Mike Green, and Cody Franzen. That means all of them are going to get over $5 million. If there was a higher market of more defensemen, then those guys would be slotted lower. But there's not. So, in a market that's bankrupt of a lot of talent, whoever is out there is going to get the money.
Yeah, I mean, plus, and I brought this up before, but I can't seem to get my readers to tune into this. If you believe that the cap is going to go to $80 million, which ultimately it will, unless there's a even further collapse of the Canadian dollar, because the revenue is going to continue to grow.
Yeah.
We're just a couple of years from that happening, in my opinion. And when that happens, you can have 16 players make $5 million each.
Right.
Right.
That's an amazing stat. That's an amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it won't happen like that, but because you need 23 players, but always you have 3 or 4 players that are making the minimum. So
rookies, who have to make.
So you're gonna end up having basically $19 million, 19 players splitting $76 million. And if it goes above 80, which it will at some point. So sooner or later, as the average salary continues to grow, it's well over $2 million now. And all defensemen with a pulse get 2.5.
Yeah. If you're a top 4 defenseman, you're probably even more like 4.
Yeah.
Right. $4 million is going to be the average salary for a second pairing defenseman.
Yeah, and the other thing that's often forgotten is these are all quality players. I mean, I agree with Mike when he says that Franzen is in Niskanen's neighborhood. I mean, if you're not one of the 10 premium defensemen, you're in the next group.
Right, exactly.
So, but I did want to bring up, I found it interesting, I had a really good chat with Doug Armstrong, the general manager of the St. Louis Blues. I'm doing a big piece today on them. And obviously he's not tipping his hand with regard to exactly what he's going to do. But I came away from that believing that the Blues are not going to make any significant deal at the trade deadline. That he talked at length about Shattenkirk's the impact of losing Shattenkirk, and talked about the depth, and Ian Cole getting his opportunity, and the fact that you got to live within your both your budget and your salary cap situation. And I really did feel, and I've actually checked this with someone else who had the same conclusion I did, just based on another conversation, that they don't believe the Blues are going to be all that active. They like their team, they like their depth. Shattenkirk will not be gone the entire season. They believe in Elliott, and I thought Darren Pang, who a former NHL goalie, who's obviously the color analyst in St. Louis, but he understands the position, and he said, what Brian Elliott needs more than anything else is a blank slate in everyone's mind.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely right, because what happens with Brian Elliott is we do not think of him as a number one goalie. And he pointed out that Elliott's stats, since he has come to the Blues, are the best in the NHL in terms of his goals against average and save percentage and the number of times he wins per start. He has been really, really effective, and he's getting his opportunity finally now. There's no Ryan Miller trade coming on the horizon, and he's performing. He's performing at a high level, and he always had. So I thought that was an interesting comment, that really he needs a blank slate in everyone else's mind, and that's probably true. And I heard, as I was walking back from taking that phone call, the discussion about, I assumed it was on the Myers and Detroit situation. And here in Detroit, someone locally has written that they feel that the Red Wings need to do everything in their power to get Myers. That you got to make the run now because Zetterberg and Datsuk are getting older. How many years do those guys have left? It's the merging of the old team and the new guys. So you got to give up, and if that means giving up, Yurko or Mo Mantha or Dylan Larkin, then he would do that. I completely disagree with that position. I just think that I think that Myers is not going to be the difference between the Red Wings winning or not winning the Cup this season. I think I would like to have Myers if I was a GM, but I don't see him as the guy that's, if they get Myers, they'll win the Cup. No, I don't think so.
Well, Craig Custance of ESPN was interviewed on a Buffalo radio station yesterday, and he basically said the thing that makes the most sense for Detroit is a guy like Franzen or a guy like Petrie, because they get a defenseman that can help them for the 1 year without having to give up a Yurko or a Mantha or a Larkin, and it might be good enough to help them get a round or two or even make a run through the East because the East is wide open. I mean, honestly, from the Buffalo point of view, Kevin, if they don't get a Larkin or a Mantha or one of those young guys who are on the wings right now, like a Tatar or a Nyquist, which I don't think is a possibility at all, then there's no impetus for them to do the deal. I mean, they have to get equal value back, and if they don't get equal value back and get a young forward prospect, which I think they need because they're loaded on defense, then Tim Murray's in no hurry to move Tyler Myers. So I think it's going to be a tough deal for a team like Detroit or a team like Anaheim, who supposedly is also interested to get Myers, because the Sabres are going to want quality back.
And I agree with that, but here's the news flash. They shouldn't trade Tyler Myers.
Right.
Exactly.
Why is it when we think of rebuilding that we have to strip it down to the chassis?
Right.
And rebuild everything.
Those rebuilds never go well, by the way, when you strip it down to the chassis.
No, when you go right down to the chassis, and I just had this conversation, I did another interview with Anthony LeBlanc of the Phoenix Coyotes, and they're doing a reset, as he says, not a rebuild. And the difference obviously is you identify 4 or 5 players, and you build around them, or 6 or 7 players, and you bring in a younger group. What's going on in Buffalo is a complete rebuild almost, but they have some players that are worth keeping around, and I would say that Myers is in that group.
Yeah. I I think it's more the fact that they have at least 3 really good young defensive prospects and George's that they think Zadorov, Ristolainen, and McCabe are going to be good NHL defensemen, and that if they could get value for Myers in terms of forward prospects, because they, other than Reinhart and whoever they draft in the first round right now, their forward prospects like Grigorenko and Joel Armia, they're not the greatest, and some of their junior prospects are a couple years away, so that they can get a guy like a Mantha or a guy like a Larkin, that would really help them out. But they're not going to give Tyler Myers away. They want to get equal value for him.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. I mean, they should get a lot if they would trade.
They really should. They really should. I agree. One more thing, Josh. What do you got?
Actually, a couple more things. I forgot to mention Lundqvist. The Rangers are saying that he's day-to-day.
He's not playing tonight, I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not. He's apparently not going on the trip to Nashville as well. That's according to AV.
Mm-hmm.
And Dion Phaneufel misses 5th straight game tonight with a hand injury. And the other thing I wanted to bring up with you guys is Sportsnet has learned that the NHL franchise in Las Vegas will be asked to lay down deposits ranging from $150 to $900. The ticket drive is scheduled to get underway on Tuesday and will go a long way to determining whether the city is awarded a team. Prospective owner Bill Foley, who is partnering with the Maloof brothers, has set a goal of at least 10,000 deposits to show that Las Vegas is a viable hockey market. We'll all get a strong indication early as to whether this is going to be something that's embraced or whether it's not, Deputy Commissioner Bill Daley said during the recent All-Star Weekend. I'm curious. I don't have a gut feeling, to tell you the truth. I see good indications that it'll be successful, but until people are asked to put their money up, none of us will know. The Vegas tickets range in price from $20 to $220 per game. Deposits will carry a 1, 3, 5, and 10-year terms. In December, Foley told Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman that he promised the NHL he'd keep his average seat at $65, which is roughly the current midpoint league-wide.
Well, $150, that's at least a good hand of blackjack, so that's
a good hand of blackjack. Yeah, you can go. Finally, tonight, before we do the lottery simulator, which we promised we would end each show with, the tonight's game, Predators, Ducks, Pekka Rinne's back. Pekka Rinne's back in the lineup tonight. This is one of those games you don't want to miss. Like, this is why you have center ice package in my mind. You have to, because these are 2 teams that definitely are among the 2 of the top teams in the entire league. This would be a hell of a playoff series if they were to play each other.
God knows Carter Hutton cost him in that game against Toronto there, Eck.
Listen, I am not a Carter Hutton hater. I got emails from so many people in Nashville saying I hate Carter Hutton. People missed my point completely. Anyway, no, that was a hell of a save that Carter Hutton made. It did hit the post first, but it was still a hell of a save that he made. Yeah. So, but no, I like Carter Hutton every which way. He's a great guy. Great.
You just want to get rid of him.
I don't want to get rid of him. Never mind. Gordon, people in Nashville just.
Well, hey, look, I supported your point. That week I wrote a story that in absentia that Rinne was still making his case for MVP because his goals against was exactly 1 goal lower.
Right.
What Carter Hutton was putting up, and you could just tell the difference. And David Poile has been on record saying the team plays differently when Rinne's in net, which to me speaks to the confidence they have in their goalie. It's not that they dislike Carter Hutton or they think he's a bad goalie. They just love and believe that Rinne is near invincible. So
Rinne is one of the best goalies, if not the best goalie in the NHL. I mean, there's a big difference there,
Yeah, although it's funny, but in his absence, Carter Price, I think, bullied his way into the Vezina race.
As did Marc-Andre Fleury.
Well, I think you're looking at the 3 finalists right there. So.
Yeah, I mean, Fleury has his 7th shutout. That ties Tom Barrasso for most shutouts in a Penguin season, and that's something, That's not.
Well, that is in Pittsburgh where you play a little bit more run and gun. Although they are playing a puck possession this year. But I need to make one point about the Anaheim Ducks because I read it somewhere, and doggone it, I wish I could remember which writer it was because it was an interesting take. And he was basically saying that he didn't know whether he should trust the Ducks because they have won so many 1-goal games. And it's sort of an evidence, and of course, right away, my mind jumped to, well, the last team we saw to do that was the Colorado Avalanche, and when you're winning that many games, is it just a matter of luck, or do you have this mental, toughness? And is it better that if you're just hammering teams, or is there a mental toughness to winning the one-goal games? Well, in Colorado's case, it just seemed like good karma. So now made me wonder about what we're seeing from the Ducks, because I actually have some trust for that team. I like that team.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of playoff team they'll be.
That you have 4 teams, like Chicago, and 5 teams, St. Louis. I mean, St. Louis, Chicago, even LA, who's not in the playoffs now, but if the playoffs started tomorrow and they made the playoffs, would be everyone's favorite to win the Stanley Cup. Apparently, because that's what everyone says. The Kings are. So the Kings, Chicago, St. Louis, Anaheim.
By the way, Vegas odds now has the Ducks right with Chicago as the favorite to win the Cup.
Yeah.
Wow.
I find it hard to believe.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, goaltending, but I don't know. Goaltending's been amazing, but at the same time, their backup right now, when they throw Brizgalov in, talk about a big drop-off. They really have a hard time winning with Brizgalov. Brizgalov has been taken out of several games he started.
Come on, he won a playoff series last year. Come on.
No, I have utmost confidence in Ilya Brizgalov. Anyway, Rob, running the lottery simulator, which comes to us from NHLLotterySimulator.com. The first time we did this, the Maple Leafs won it. Today we're doing it, and the winner is, I'll throw it up here on the screen. Just did it. The winner is the Carolina Hurricanes. All right, so today
Wow.
The Hurricanes have taken this one. They have an 11.5 chance of winning the lottery, but this is they have won this particular draft lottery. So far we have
That would be quite a 1-2 punch of Connor McDavid and Eric Stahl as your 1 and 2 centers.
Yeah, that would be for the league. That would be a good thing, because I think that would make Carolina a strong franchise for years to come in terms of their ability to sustain their season ticket base.
Now the league wants Connor McDavid in Toronto. That would fill the coffers a lot more.
They would definitely sell a lot of jerseys.
Oh yes.
Toronto.
By the way, we'll have a lot to talk about tomorrow, because for my AM preview tomorrow, I'm writing why the Maple Leafs should not trade Phil Kessel.
Nice. All right. Well, there's something to look forward to, guys. So if there's a big teaser, definitely check out the USA Today tomorrow and find out why they shouldn't trade Phil Kessel. Why? Thankfully, I guess Drew Doughty's not the GM of that team, or whatever it was. Whoever made that trade at the draft.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. Without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you soon.